Hey everyone, Warwick's here. So we're back with another guide video. This one we're doing Feral Druid. So if you, again, have been following the channel, I talk about this all the time, but Druid is my second favorite class behind Monk. Particularly Guardian and Feral Druid. I will dabble in Balance and Resto Druid every now and then, but currently I just don't like either of their gameplay styles all that much. So it's definitely one that I'll probably not be seeing a lot of. You probably won't see guides on it, but Guardian Feral, I actually really enjoy the way that they're playing this season, so yeah, it's back to being my number one alt, along with Mage and now Warrior as my for fun alts. But anyways, today's video we're going to be going over everything that you need to get yourself started with Season 2 of The War Within. I know we're getting into Week 2, Week 3 now, but Feral Druid is a spec that always is seen and has a perception of being very difficult. And in some aspects there is, because there are some stuff that I think is a little bit BS, but I want to try to help those that are interested in playing Feral for the first time or are fairly new to the spec go for it. And that's who my guides are always tailored to. They are tailored towards players that are considered beginners. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go over your talents, then we'll talk about your stats, we'll talk about consumables. We'll talk about some items you want to go chase, particularly in the weapon and trinkets department. And then we'll do a kind of an overview of the rotation. So if there's anything in particular that you're looking for, I'll try to chapter them out down below here. If you haven't checked out like the Guardian guide, go up that way and go check. But let's get into it with our talent builds. And we're going to start off with the single target raid build. Now there's a couple of different variations that you can do on this build itself, but I'm using the one that's going to be, generally speaking, the most effective in the raid because of how the raid is specifically designed. I'll start in the class tree. They did make some changes to the class tree here. There's a new talent, things like Grievous Wounds has been made. Here, Feline Swiftness has come way down. Fluid Form is now down here in the tree. The main things that you want to get, obviously, you start off with Rake, Rip, and Thrash. Those are granted to you for free. Obviously, you want to grab Killer Instinct because more physical damage. Primal Fury, which gives you more combo point generation. Obviously, your Kick because it's actually going to be important in the raid this time. Things like Stampeding Roar, good point of in-combat utility, with Wild Charge being very effective to help you get back from mechanics. Then there's this new talent, Circle of the Wild, that we want to grab as well, which gives you a physical damage increase by 5%. So lots of these are like the main mandatory talents, and then you just kind of pick anything that you want going down the tree. There are some flex points here. You can skip over for something like Hibernate if you want to grab Nurturing Instinct if you're going to use a more Lunar Inspiration based build. I don't recommend it unless it's pure single target like Sprocketmonger. You can also trade a point out of Typhoon if you don't need it to grab Lore of the Grove. Again, that's going to be if you're playing a pure single target build where Moonfire and Lunar Inspiration will play a factor. But other than that, like, you kind of can pick a lot of the things that you think you need. Some of these are just very straightforward, like reducing all damage by 4%, giving you Wellhood Instincts, the free frenzy regen below 40% every 90 seconds. Obviously more movement speed. Giving you an extra DR on your Survival Instincts and Bark Skin. Ursine Vigor gives you the Bear Form adjustment, which occasionally you might have to go into Bear Form to help soak a mechanic or something along those lines. And then I grab Incap Roar here. This is also a flex point. You can trade it out to grab something else if you feel like you need it. I grab it because there are some places where stunning ads is going to be very useful. So having Incap Roar somewhere available to you is not necessarily a bad thing. Over in the class tree, now this build does take Primal Wrath, and that's because a majority of the raid fights do have ads that spawn periodically throughout the fight that you do have to take your time down to get over and kill. There's not a lot of pure single target fights, like Sprocketmonger is really the only true one. So Primal Wrath is going to be in your default build, even though it's the quote AoE spender. It's still a very useful ability for you to have on most of these fights. If you don't want to take it because you're playing like a Sprocketmonger fight, you would just take the point and put it into Tireless Energy. And then you would take this point in Rampant Ferocity and put it over into Lunar Inspiration. But other than that, this is pretty much the build that you're going to be looking to run on most fights. The big things to keep in mind here, obviously you're running Apex Predator's Craving, which means that when your rip damage ticks, every rip damage that ticks, you get a chance to get a free Ferocious Bite that acts as its maximum damage, which means max combo points with all the stored energy up. You don't want to waste these procs. I need to adjust my weak aura package to do a sound cue when this goes off, so that way it helps remind me. We are playing Convoke in this build right now, although I'd love for Incarn to make a comeback like it did in early Dragonflight. You are playing Adaptive Swarm, but you're not playing the Unbridled Swarm here, just because most of the ads don't live long enough for this, but you still want this on like your primary target. And then Feral Frenzy helps with some early combo point generation. Obviously, we're playing Bloodtalons as we have for a long time. There was a moment where where Lion Strength could have been better, but they nerfed it, and Ferocious Bite is just 10% better now. So Bloodtalons is back. We'll talk about Bloodtalons in a little bit. And then, of course, Brutal Slash, because it's your most energy-efficient combo point generator. And then you got Rip and Tear, which is very good for these short ad burst fights where you want to, build combo points quickly, and then you can Rip and Tear them. You can then constantly keep bleeds going on this target. Vein Ripper does have some potential in pure single target situations, but it's not very common this raid, so it's just not going to see play. And Wild Slashes just doesn't do enough. Like, that could be 80% and it still wouldn't be as good as Brutal Slash. We do play Wild Stalker because of the Thriving Growths. This just gives another damage over time effect, which means you have high uptime whether or not you're on the boss or not. Some things to keep in mind here. Now, some people would say, oh, why don't you play Lunar Inspiration, because then you're wasting half of on Beneath the Open Skies tooltip, but really you're using it for the cat form damage. In your choice nodes, Flower Walk, which gives you and a little bit of a group heal when you bark skin, which you should be bark skinning fairly often because you have it up every minute. You'll run generally just this passive here, Bond with Nature, which gives you the extra healing increase, but you can grab Harmonious Constitution if you want to make these regrowths a little bit available. But this is going to make all healing come in, rather than this is just targeted at one heal. Implant is going to be better here because you're activating Tiger's Fury quite a bit, obviously. And then your next single target melee ability, obviously in a raid build, this is going to be Shred, Rip, Manly Shred and Rip. Just allows you to get that on your target. And then over here, you're grabbing Resilient Flourishing, which makes your Bloodseeker Vines last 2 seconds longer, but does allow them to jump to a nearby target. There is some speculation that Root Network could work, giving you more damage on all your abilities while they're active, but just getting that additional, I think it's 2 ticks. Yeah, I think it ticks like every second or something like that. So two additional ticks of this is just going to be better than what you're going to get off of, generally speaking, more damage. But there's some math behind that has to be done. So that's the kind of the main single target build. Again, you're playing Primal Wrath just because of the way this raid is set up, but there is a way to get some pure single target if you want it. For Mythic Plus, you don't see a lot of changes. Obviously, as you can see, only the Druid Talent Tree has picked up, and then you are dropping the second point in Tireless Energy to grab Double Clawed Rake, which gives you more bleeds out onto your targets, which is never a bad thing. But big thing, obviously, you want to talk about in Mythic Plus is that you are getting Ravage. So basically, this makes it so that when you auto-attack, you get a chance to convert your Ferocious Bite into Ravage, which then will do a whole bunch of damage, and a bunch of damage in an arc, so it has very valuable play in Mythic Plus. Obviously, you have Primal Wrath, and then you can mix in your Ravages as a finisher in front of it and get a lot of AoE damage on this. Now, Druid of the Claw does have play into the fantasy a little bit of shifting in and out of like bear form and stuff like that, but you don't really want to do that unless you're tanking mechanics. So you're utilizing this for different reasons. Obviously, you're getting max energy increase here, an extra bleed. Just a flat damage to your Ferocious Bite and Rampant Ferocity with Ravage and stuff like that. And then you're getting bigger direct damage on your Primal Wrath. So it just plays into like all of your AoE capabilities. Longer Stampeding Roar You'll take Killing Strikes here just because you always get the ability to increase your agility, whereas Ravage increasing your auto attack. You don't really gain much out of auto attacks, whereas like Bear gets a lot out of auto attack because that means more rage. Feral does not. Auto attacks are nice because obviously it means, you know, better attack speed does mean that you're going to get that, but like you don't scale your auto attacks with haste like a lot of other auto attack based classes do. So really you want to take advantage of the fact that you can get these Ravages and get the bonus agility out of this. And because you're always going to get a Ravage when you go into Tiger's Fury, you're always going to be able to guarantee at least one proc of this agility bonus. Wild Shape Mastery, you grab. This is mostly just for defensive purposes. If you have to transform into Bear, then, you know, you kind of keep the armor and then get a free heal when you do it. In this choice node, we do take in Empowered Shapeshifting just because it makes it so that you can use Frenzied Regen in cat form as a pure defensive type ability, but you're mainly getting the Shred and Brutal Slash damage. Wild Power Surge is mostly about shifting into bear form and stuff like that, so not a lot of use for Feral because you don't want to be shifting into bear form for DPS reasons ever. You only shift into bear form for defensive purposes, so you don't get a lot out of this talent. Aggravate Wounds just makes it so that, you know, you get the dreadful wounds built up more and more, so just better dot damage. And then you want to do Strike for the Heart, just because you gain more critical damage on this, whereas this talent gives you Feral Frenzy, which you do take, make it a 35-second cooldown, but this is more consistent damage over the course of a fight. And then Claw Rampage makes it so that when you're in your Berserk, all your abilities have a chance to make your Ravage proc more often, which means you're just going to get more of that Ravage damage out. So, not a lot of difference in the builds. Just like I said, it's really just one talent point. Feral's trees right now are very, very limited, which is a good and bad thing. They just kind of need some talent tuning across the board. But the good thing is you can play both of your talent trees, and that's going to be perfectly fine. Which is not a lot of classes, because I mean, Monk doesn't play two talent trees. They play the same one. Like, only Mistweaver can play both hero talent trees, but Windwalker's locked into one, Brewmaster's locked into one. I know that Mage right now is locked in, or Frost Mage is locked into one. I think Fire Mage is also locked into one, as is Mage. So like Mage, they only have, like, each spec only has one talent tree. So the fact that you can use both, that's a good sign. That means you have healthy hero talent trees. Alright, let's talk about your stats, because I think it'll help influence a lot of the rest of what we're doing. Now, this character, obviously not nearly optimized. I'm just chasing some eye level and tier right now. We'll talk a little bit about the tier set bonus when we go to your... when we talk about the gear. But for both specs, the crit mastery playstyle hasn't really changed, with haste being your third kind of stat that you want to go for. As you can see here, obviously I've got a lot of haste mastery because that's just what the gear has been dropping for me. But I'm trying to switch over into more crit based setups, really trying to gear this. Feral is a primary spec, Guardian is a secondary spec, just because I really enjoy Feral's playstyle right now. But as always, sim yourself. You might get to a point where you have like 35% crit and only like, say, 12% haste. And, you know, say you have like 60% mastery. That haste piece might actually be better for you in that case versus another crit mastery piece. Just because you do eventually hit diminishing returns on your stats. And the ceiling on them right now, at least, is pretty high. So you always want to be mindful of that. But if you're looking at two pieces of equal eye level, generally speaking, the crit mastery piece is generally going to be better than, say, like a mastery haste or a mastery verse or a verse haste, things like that. All right, while I'm here, let's go ahead and talk about enchants. So on your weapon, Authority of the Depths is still the best one. I think my fat head's in the way of this, but Authority of the Depths is still the best enchant for your weapon, so you want to make sure that you're grabbing that. You can use the Stonebound Artistry, which gives you extra mastery. And your mastery, obviously, impacting like your bleed damage and stuff like that is good, but Authority of the Depths procs enough that it's just really worth it. On your cloak and on your bracers, you can do Wing Grace, which is the avoidance. You can do speed if you want, but I mean, Feral's got a lot of inherent speed already. And then you can also look into Leech as well if you do play like a lot of Resto Druid, but generally speaking, you're going to want to grab avoidance on your cloak and on your bracers. Crystalline Radiance is still the best for your chest piece, getting that additional main stat. Over on your leatherworking set. There's the Stormbound armor kit is still the best. Now there is, and I'll talk about this in the monk videos too, there is a leatherworking kit that was added with this new patch called the Charged Armor Kit that gives primary stat for all 3 primary stats. So if you're a player that plays a lot of balance or you play a lot of restoration where you're bouncing between that, instead of having to get 2 pairs of legs, you can make your life slightly easier in terms of quality of life, but less optimized in terms of performance, and just slap a Charged Armor Kit on your legs. It gives you like, I think it's like 850 primary stat, whereas the Stormbound Armor Kit at rank 3 gives 930, and it's like almost 900 stamina, whereas the Charged Armor Kit is 800. So again, it's a little bit weaker, but its quality of life is much better because you're not having to constantly carry like 3 pairs of pants. If you just have like your one good set of tier, then you can slap the Charged Armor Kit on there if you play multiple primary stat specs. Like if you play like me, Guardian and Feral, you're going to want to put the Stormbound Armor Kit on this at any time. And then if you are a Resto Moonkin player, you'll only put your Sunthread on. But if you play like Guardian and Balance or Feral and Resto, something like that, then that Charged Armor Kit is going to be pretty useful. On your rings, obviously you don't have these all set up perfectly yet. Obviously it's still Season 1 stuff. I'm going to update it slowly, but you want to grab Critical Strike. Ideally the Radiate one, because it gives you the 315. You can run the Curse one because it only saps your haste, which is like not the worst thing in the world to get that little extra bit of crit stat out of it. So you can run either of those, but yeah, typically crit rings are going to be your bread and butter. So let's talk about some gear. We'll start with tier set. This is actually the first spec. I didn't think to talk about this with any other one. For melee DPS, they get Winning Streak, which means that you gain stacking damage on your finishers in this case. And then when you use those finishers, it has a chance to remove Winning Streaks, but your Apex Predator's Ferocious Bites are exempt from that chance, which is fantastic. And then it's your 4-piece, basically, you get Big Winner, which deals an additional amount of damage to your Apex Predator's primary target, and then increases the damage of your periodic effects by 16% for 6 seconds. It's a decent tier set. I wouldn't call it like anything tremendous, but it is, good enough. All right, let's look at some gear that you might want to be keeping an eye out for throughout the raid, and we'll start with your weapon. So the best weapon is going to come off of the One-Armed Bandit, which is boss number 6 in the raid. And that is the best in slots. So this gives you, obviously, an on-equip effect, which gives you a random secondary stat, because you really kind of do enjoy 3 secondary stats. You really like Crit Mastery. Actually, I would say you love Crit and Mastery. You like Haste, and you're okay with Verse. Like, you're friendly with Verse. Getting your random secondary stat on this is not a bad thing. But then you can also have an on-use effect of 2 minutes, which ties quite nicely into something like Berserk, which also has a 2-minute cooldown, where you automatically gain that primary stat. So you can macro this into your Berserk and gain quite a bit of, usually it'll be crit or mastery that you'll gain. So it's just a really, really strong mace. The big thing is that it's very rare, so it's hard to get to, and it's on Mugsy, or on One-Armed Bandit, which if your guild is not 6 of 8 Mythic, it's going to be hard to get it at the very highest of levels. Now, if you're an AOTC guild, obviously then you're looking at getting it on Hero Track, which is fine. For Mythic Plus, if you only go through Mythic Plus, then you could go into Priory of the Sacred Flame and grab the Glorious Defender's Poleaxe. This is probably one of the better weapons. No crit on it, but Haste Mastery is not bad. So this is another weapon that you can go chase down. If you can get this at Myth Track versus grabbing Best in Slots, it's going to be a very good second option for you. All right. On your circlet, you're going to run these... 2 out of these 3. I got to fix the skipper one here, which is... even have it in my bags. I don't think I do. I'll have to grab it out of my Warbank. So you'll change the legendary Skipper Citrine over to the Windsinger's Rune Citrine because it gives that mastery. But then you'll run Fathom Dwellers, which gives you mastery. and then your Stormbringers, which gives you a little bit of every secondary stat. So that's what you're going to use on that ring. That ring will last you basically until you probably get Myth Track rings, and that's about the time that you'll replace it. But you want to sim yourself just to make sure that, you know, everyone, make sure that you're equipping it or unequipping it at the right time. All right, let's talk trinkets. So there are 3 trinkets that I think really fall, or 4 trinkets really that fall that you can gain out of Raid and Mythic Plus, and then 1 that comes out of the Delves. The Delves is the Ascendancy Serum. It gives you haste when you grab it, and then you can drink from the vial and gain a bunch of primary stat. But it's a channeled cost. It's very, very good, but you do have that opportunity cost that comes with it. But from trinket standpoint, the number 1 trinket you want to go chase also happens to come off the One-Armed Bandit, and that is House of Cards. So when you use this, again, it's 1 minute and 30 seconds, so you can kind of tie it to something like Convoke, or you can tie it to Tiger's Fury, and just use it every 3rd Fury or something like that. You gain a buttload of mastery, and then it gives you more mastery the longer that you're in combat every time that you use them. So obviously mastery being a very, very healthy stat for Feral Druid right now. This is going to be a wonderful, wonderful trinket. Now it does make it so that when you leave combat it's there, so there is some risk associated with it for Mythic Plus, but it's a very, very good raid trinket. The other one is going to be the one that a lot of DPS are going to be chasing for raid purposes, and that's the Eye of Kazan. Basically, you gain a bunch of agility, passive trinket, and then it fires off big damage when you reach max capacity. Big thing is again, for Mythic Plus, this trinket has some very high risk associated with it, because as soon as you leave combat, it starts to rapidly decay. So it's possible that in Mythic Plus, you're not going to gain the same value out of it. But again, for raid, this trinket is absolutely beautiful for raid. Again, it does require you killing Gallywix, so you have to compete with pretty much everyone that's going to be chasing it. But very, very good trinket that you can grab. And of course, this ring is also one that you want to go chase, just because, again, its equip effect is ridiculous. Alright, now out of dungeons, the big one that you can grab here is Priory of the Sacred Flame, and of course that is the Signet of the Priory, which gives you highest secondary stat for 20 seconds, and then also gives your party members. So the more people that have Priory in your party or raid, the better this trinket actually becomes. So Signet stacking is definitely going to be a thing. There's been trinkets like this in the past before, where the more of them you have, the better off they're going to be. Very, very good trinket, farmable obviously out of Priory, so if you can't get your hands on House of Cards or the Eye, this is a fantastic option to grab. That is very good. And again, on a 2-minute cooldown, you can rope it in right into your Berserk. And then finally, we are looking at, off of Kiza, Quick Fuse out of the Motherlode. No, out of Operation Floodgate, sorry. This here, this improved Sephorium Pacemaker. Basically, when you equip this, you get a chance to gain crit. Feral loves crit. And then you keep blowing up. And then you gain more crit. Very, very good trinket. Just, again, another one that you can chase. Farmable out of Mythic Plus. The 2 trinkets out of Mythic Plus are generally going to be the best ones for Mythic Plus. And then the ones out of Raid are going to typically be best for Raid. Does that mean it's annoying that you have to carry potentially 4 trinkets? Absolutely. But, you know, it is what it is. Alright, let's talk about your rotation real quick. So, we're going to come over here to this dummy. Now, the Feral rotation is interesting. And the big thing you want to do is you always want to start from stealth. Accidentally hit Nature's Vigil. So, you always want to start from stealth as much as you can, because when you're stealthing, your rake does more damage. So what you'll do is, on your opener, I've got my notes here because this is a little bit more intense than like the Windwalker opener, is out of stealth, you're always going to want to rake. So you're going to want to rake, Brutal Slash, and then either Shred to gain your Bloodtalons proc, Adaptive Swarm, Then you cast Berserk and Tiger's Fury. Cast your Rip. Feral Frenzy to gain your combo points. Ferocious Bite. And then you want to Convoke. And then you just dump. And then at this point, you're basically just making sure that you gain, like, maintain your bleeds. I got them here tracked. You always want to use Brutal Slash charges so that you can keep them on cooldown. So that's kind of the opener on that. After that, it's really just about using Tiger's Fury off cooldown. Rip to keep it up all the time. You can Pandemic it. Rake to keep it up. To keep Pandemic it. Thrash is actually good in single target because, again, it incorporates with your mastery. Your Feral, obviously, here. Oh, I'm still in combat. There we go. Which gives you, you know, periodic bleed damage, which is never a bad thing. And then you just, anytime you don't have to use Rake, you then use Ferocious Bite to dump your combo points. Now, the thing about Ferocious Bite is that you always want to try to use it when you're above 50 energy to maximize the damage that you gain out of it. This does mean that sometimes Feral does have a little bit of downtime while you wait for that energy to pool, and that's okay. So, just watch that back. Any clear casting procs that you get, which makes your next builder free, try to use them on Shred or Thrash because there's 40 energy behind them. And so you're going to get the most bang for your buck using that. Brutal Slash is only 25 energy, so you don't want to use it on that as much as humanly possible. But like I said, other than that, it's keeping cooldown stuff on cooldown. And then when you are in Berserk, everything just speeds up. Like, your gameplay just gets faster. And that's really the big difference behind it. Managing energy is the most important part of Feral's gameplay loop. And then maintaining your buffs. Now let's talk about Bloodtalons real quick. So Bloodtalons is the kind of a proc maintenance thing that you want to make sure that you're using all finishers for. I would actually argue that for beginners, it's okay for you to overcap your combo points in order to make sure that you have Bloodtalons procced for your finishers. Because 25% damage on Ferocious Bites, or Rip in particular, is really, really good. And it does actually work on Primal Wrath as well. That's a big damage that you're getting, that you're not getting if you don't have Bloodtalons up. So find a way to track Bloodtalons, whether you do it through the Blizzard default UI, you have a weak aura package or something like that. Make Bloodtalons be something that you know where to locate it at all times, because using a finisher without Bloodtalons makes that finisher hit very weak. Using a finisher with Bloodtalons makes it hit like a truck. So just be very, very mindful. Bloodtalons is one of the many things that you track on Feral. There's a lot of tracking that goes on with this spec, which is why it's considered one of the harder specs to play. But once you get your muscle memory into place, you're going to realize that it's actually very, very easy to maintain all that information. So that's the guide on Feral, guys. If you have any questions about anything, please put them in the comments below. I'll be trying to, I try to answer them as much as possible. As I record this, I've got some bigwigs at my work that are in the office, so we're all putting our phones away and being good little angels this week at work. So I may not answer very, very quickly, but once I'm off work or I'm on my lunch or whatever the case may be, you bet your ass I'm going to be answering a lot of questions if you put them down in the comments. So until the next video, I hope you all stay safe. Hope you enjoy yourself. You're having fun. You keep on gaming. Like, share, and subscribe to this video and to this channel. And I'll see you all next time.